Would you go to your mechanic for advice about the stock market? How about your hairdresser for advice on how to build a house? Your pastor about medical advice? Today we are looking at Bible-thumping wingnut as he shows us where Pastor John McArthur was asked about getting the COVID vaccine. You might recall that McArthur is the pastor of Grace Church in Los Angeles, California, a megachurch with the capacity for 3,500 people in its auditorium. They fought restrictions on large gatherings and won. Now Los Angeles County has one of the highest positive COVID rates in the country at 10%. Could be a coincidence. I'll let you decide on that one. But stay tuned if you want to see what the pastor says about getting the vaccine and some actual helpful advice from a real medical professional. Let's have a chat. Hello and welcome. I have a new patron to announce. Kitty the Atheist is now a patron. Welcome to the family, Kitty. And a special thank you to John O'Connell, a registered pharmacist, for his help with this video. He has some very helpful information, so let's start with the question to John McArthur. The video of the Q&A session is from Bible Thumping Wingnut. You occasionally see and hear from him as well.
And this is the lady who asked the question about vaccines. What are we going to do about the COVID-19 vaccine if the government makes us take it?
My first thought out of the gate is, why go to your pastor with a question about taking a vaccine? I mean, you wouldn't go to your mechanic for advice on the stock market. If you want advice about a vaccine, ask your doctor. If you think your doctor is part of a conspiracy for the government and doesn't have your best health interests in mind, then you need a new doctor. If you feel that no doctor can be trusted because they're all in on the conspiracy, you need to start thinking about how it is that millions of people are all in on a government conspiracy and no one is telling. This is some serious paranoia. But I do understand why she went to McArthur with this question, because she really is not asking about the wisdom of getting vaccinated, but of standing up to the government if the government requires a vaccine. She has a legal question about her rights. But again, why go to your pastor? The question is better addressed to a lawyer. The reason she went to the pastor, and this pastor in particular, is John McArthur sued the state of California over restrictions on gathering and won. Because he won the right to have his congregation meet, not social distance and not wearing a mask, as you see from the picture, she probably concluded that he would be a good source to ask about whether she can refuse a vaccine. She reasonably concluded he would be a good source to ask about whether she can refuse a government-mandated vaccine, should that ever happen. What she and the rest of the congregation are failing to notice is that since their church got the legal right to meet in person, cases of COVID-19 increased 1,000-fold in their county. But Los Angeles is a big county. We don't know how much of the spread is due to this church or even churches in general. So what advice does McArthur have for her? Let's bring John in so we can react together. I am speaking with John O'Connell, who has a master's in pharmacy from the University of Maryland. Hello, John.
Hi, Kelly.
Thank you very much for helping me out with this video. And in case you're wondering, John is also my brother. So that's how I was able to find a pharmacist to help me out with this video.
For cheap, too.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your background in pharmacy.
So I went to pharmacy school at Oregon State University a long time ago. I got a residency and master's degree from Maryland, and have been working in Northern California in Sonoma County as a pharmacist specializing in long-term care and hospice care.
Okay.
For
all right.
55 years.
I'm going to put up John McArthur here, and he's going to tell us what he thinks about COVID.
Let me just make a quick and obvious statement. As it is now, you have a 99.998% chance of having no lasting effect from COVID.
What would your response be to that statement?
Well, I would say that death is a very long-lasting effect, and a lot more than 0.0002% of the people who have been exposed to COVID have died. And the numbers right now are running at about 1% of those infected. I know that the number is closing in on 500,000 people. And that's a lot of people who have died from this. And what we don't have a number on yet are the number of people that are being termed as, quote, long haulers. And that is people who have symptoms for months after they've been infected. And that might mean that they get winded by walking up a set of stairs, that they get chronic headaches, that they still have fevers every once in a while, that they're just chronically fatigued.
Have you heard any stats or anything about, I know there's nothing exact on this, but do you have any kind of a feel for how many people are feeling long-lasting effects from the virus?
No, actually, I don't.
There's
And
another.
part of it is, I don't know that it's even being collected by anybody. I mean,
Mm.
the ability to collect data like that would be left up to local public health agencies and individual doctors' offices. And
Mhm.
frankly, the CDC that I'm aware of is not pulling that data at this point. They're just trying to get numbers of cases and deaths. And the other part of it is, when it comes to just getting numbers of cases, they still have to get a better feel for what subtypes of the COVID this is, as opposed to just, they got COVID. Well, now they need to really know which kind of COVID, because is it the South African variant? Is it the UK variant? Is it the Los Angeles variant? The vaccine, the virus is mutating, on a frequent basis now, and that is pretty much a result of the fact that anybody who gets COVID has millions of viruses that replicate, and when you put that over millions of people, you start getting into what's called big math, where any one particular replication could result in a small change in the way that the virus is conformed, such that part of its genome is tweaked just a little bit.
Mhm.
And sometimes those little tweaks don't amount to anything, but sometimes those little tweaks amount to something like the transmission ability increases.
Mhm.
And that's really what's happening right now with this South African variant, is that this particular kind of multiple tweaks in one particular virus subtype or variant just starts being able to be transmitted easier than the original one, which was bad enough.
All right, let's see what he says about taking the vaccine.
From what we hear, the vaccine is 94% effective. So why reduce your odds?
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you enjoy living in a bubble and wearing a mask everywhere you go in public and questioning whether or not you can travel in public transportation and go out to restaurants and not wear masks and everything like that, I don't know where to begin with a statement like that. You're not lowering your odds. You're increasing your odds that you're not going to get sick. It is just a crazy, crazy thought. I mean, if we didn't have smallpox vaccine, do you know how much smallpox would be around right now?
No clue.
Or measles or all these other diseases that are being controlled with vaccines. And the idea that you have a vaccine that is 94% effective, and right now that's actually our best case situation, but that is like the best news possible. I don't know where to begin with something like that. That's just an indication of somebody who doesn't really understand science very well.
She really had more of a legal question, which was, if the government is going to require us to have the vaccine, should we take the vaccine or should we defy the government? And the reason why she directed it at him is because his church, which is, if it's not the biggest church in Los Angeles, it's pretty close to it. When Los Angeles had a mask requirement, it was a limitation on the number of people that could meet, and he
Right.
won.
Yeah.
And because they won that, she's looking at it that, hey, this guy knows how to stand up to bad regulations or regulations that are inhibiting our free religion. Although this really has nothing to do with their ability to practice their religion.
No, and one, I don't think that there will be a government requirement that everyone get vaccinated. That there's no way that's going to happen. However, what you will find is you may find that airlines require you if you want to fly on them.
And they do bring that up in the video a little bit later.
And you may have an employer that may require you to be vaccinated for you to be hired. So regulations like that by private employers and private companies, that has not been tested in the courts. That will probably get tested in the courts at some point. But, that I think that if they don't want to get vaccinated, that Darwinism will sort itself out. And they'll learn a little bit about science that way. So I guess I shouldn't so much make light of that, but it's true. It's sort of like if they want to drive their car without a seatbelt and test that, there's a law that says you're supposed to wear a seatbelt. There's good statistics that say what happens if you don't wear a seatbelt. But if you choose not to, it's, maybe you'll get a ticket once in a while. It's kind of hard, but if you get in an accident, you're going to figure it out. So
what are your thoughts about taking the vaccine? Is it safe to take the vaccine?
So as somebody who has had a dose of the Moderna vaccine, and I'm age 61, I know that it's got a very good safety panel on it. It's got a low degree of side effects. Most all people will have some degree of side effects after their second dose, usually a fever and headache and feeling very tired. And all of those things are an indication that the vaccine is actually working to do what it's supposed to do. And that is to stimulate your immune system to make T cells and B cells. So your immune system is working when you are having those side effects. Now, I think that there is a subset of people that we can look at based on some preliminary data from a study that came out of Norway that said frail elderly in nursing homes, that people over age 85, they may have some troubles with the messenger RNA vaccines, that the side effects on those may not be worth it. Now, whether or not it may work better for them to get a different vaccine, that's still to be seen. And the preliminary results with the protein subunit vaccine, which is kind of a different formulation of the vaccine. There's a couple different kinds of vaccines that are being made. The Novavax vaccine is a little safer, I think, in the elderly, and they've got more data to support that.
Which vaccines are messenger RNA vaccines?
So those are the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines.
Okay.
Those are the ones that need to be stored at super cold temperatures, easier to learn how to make, but they're a little less stable in terms of requiring this very cold temperature. They don't last well. They don't last for a long time at room temperature, so they have to be used right away.
What about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine?
So the J&J vaccine is something called an adenovector vaccine. And what that does is it kind of works like a little bit of a Trojan horse to get into your body and teach your body how to make its own vaccine. That's essentially what it's doing.
Mm.
And that's another one that type of vaccine formulation has been around for a long time. And they've been effective. We've seen some good numbers from them, and I'm fairly certain that that the U.S. will be approving the J&J vaccine in the next couple of weeks, and that's going to make a big difference in terms of getting the greater population vaccinated.
Do you think the Novavax vaccine will get approved in the United States, or are they even seeking approval in the United States?
Yeah, they're going to be seeking approval. They've had a study of 30,000 people that probably became fully enrolled probably today or tomorrow. So their U.S. studies began the last week of December. They had a 15,000 person study in the UK that they've got fully enrolled in preliminary data, and their preliminary data was fantastic. They had study data out of South Africa as well, including data against the South African variant. So all in all, the Novavax vaccine will be available at some point. I'm fairly confident. I think it'll probably be the fourth vaccine that's approved. It's possible that the Oxford vaccine will get approved before that, but it kind of depends on what the FDA requires in terms of data. I think that the FDA will have Novavax data before they have Oxford data. It's hard to say what they're going to do. Novavax has submitted their emergency authorization to Canada a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure they'll be submitting one to the UK soon as well. So it kind of depends on the number. It's an interesting process. Basically, when you do a study like this, you have to get a certain number of positive cases to come out. And then when you get the number that you need to determine how effective the vaccine is, you compare how many people got the placebo, how many people got the vaccine, and look at, and that's how they calculate the percentage of effectiveness. So you have to wait a certain amount of time until there's a certain number of positive cases that occur. So that's the time part of this all. And then you're also monitoring for side effects. And, so far, all of these vaccines have been safe. So there have been very few severe side effects. There's been a few, but the numbers have been fairly low. So.
There's one last comment of his I wanted to go through.
What about going out of the country? If you have family and they make it mandatory?
I'm being a little bit facetious. That's the same choice you would have with the flu vaccine. Some of you have taken the flu. I took the flu vaccine twice, and both times I got the flu. So there are no guarantees with that, except that they're injecting you with the illness. So.
And that was what I wanted you to talk about.
Yeah, that's really so blatantly wrong. It's not even funny. It's really sad that he would make a statement like that. They are not injecting you with the illness. They are injecting you with a very small piece of protein that mimics the COVID vaccine in the case of the protein vaccines. With Moderna, Pfizer, they're injecting you with a very small portion of messenger RNA, which is it's a substance that then teaches your body how to make something to fool the virus. So when a person makes a statement that they are injecting you with the actual disease, is that what he said? I can't remember if that's what he said.
Yeah, he said the illness.
The illness. To me, what he's saying is that they're injecting you with live virus vaccine. And that is not the case with COVID. Now, I will say that there are some kinds of diseases that use live virus vaccines. That is true with, say, typhoid. So if you were to be traveling to a country that required you to have typhus vaccine, there is a particular product that you would take that is a very diluted, highly diluted down, infected form of typhus to stimulate your immune system to make antibodies to the typhoid. But that is not how they're doing COVID. That they're not giving anybody active vaccine. So they're essentially stimulating your immune system to be able to fight it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your help with this.
All right. Thanks, Kelly. Take care.
But if McArthur actually cared about being truthful, even if he only looked at deaths, he should be focusing on death in his area. In Los Angeles County, there have been 18,360 deaths in a population of 10.4 million people, which is 0.17% of the population. Only 99.83% of the people in his county survive, not the 99.998 that he claims. And while 0.17% is still a small percentage, it's a lot of people overall. 0.02% of the population of Los Angeles County is 208 people. Over 18,000 people in your county are dead, Mr. McArthur, not 208. Tens of thousands more have been hospitalized. They also cannot say that COVID has had no lasting effect on them. We know that Los Angeles County has 1.15 million cases of COVID. That's 11% of the population. They have had as many as 8,000 people hospitalized at one time at the peak, but I don't have stats on the total number of people who were hospitalized. The one thing that we don't know is how long some of the effects of COVID will last. Even people who were never hospitalized report experiencing symptoms for months after they were ill, and doctors have no way of knowing whether those symptoms that they experience will be permanent or not. And as John pointed out, we have no stats on how many people this is. So McArthur's statement that COVID has no lasting effect on 99.998% of the people is not only grossly inaccurate, it assumes facts unknown even to doctors. If God told him this, God either got it wrong or McArthur is having trouble getting the message. Anyone with this degree of ignorance of the facts has no business giving health advice to people. While the woman asked a legal question, can we refuse a government-mandated vaccine, the response that she was given was health advice. You don't need the vaccine because the disease isn't really a problem. When 10% of the people in your area are ill with a potentially fatal disease, claiming the disease isn't likely to have any lasting effect on you is, in my opinion, gross negligence. 10% of the people in his area have the disease. If the vaccine is 94% effective, the vast majority can avoid illness altogether and hospitalization or the risk of death. Even if the odds were less than 1% of getting sick, which it isn't, increasing your odds of not getting sick is still a good thing. McArthur won a court case on the free exercise of religion in getting the right to meet in person. Somehow he thinks that this has made him an expert on the virus and feels that he can give medical advice. This free advice was worth exactly what the woman asking the question paid for it. Actually, no. This advice could get people sick who didn't need to get sick. I prefer to get my science advice from people like John who understand the science. Stay safe, get the vaccine, live your life.